What if I told you that Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampkin's romantic relationship, which has been hailed on social media as the stuff of dreams, is actually a terrible mess? No, it's not just fishy. It's completely musty on a spiritual and emotional level. When Jim tore off the bandage from a wound he had had for 10 years, nothing could be cleaned with bleach. Even the VH1 producers were surprised by this. After speaking up, Jim lost it, and he's revealing the kind of ugly anguish that gives love and hip-hop its potency. We're talking about shady recordings, twisted loyalty games, guilt trips, and a connection so toxic that Instagram attempted to flag the content as distressing. The question now is whether Chrissy was ever truly in love, or if this whole situation was a long-running hoax involving Chanel, pearls, and red bottoms. Why did Jim characterize her love as steely, suffocating, and purposeful? And more importantly, what evidence does he have for this advancement? A public, emotional crime scene merely revealed every nude aspect of Chrissy's meticulously constructed story. One press release won't solve anything. Let's start at the top. Jim and Chrissy deceived everyone when they first appeared on our screens by organizing lavish vacations, placing pricey rings on people's hands, and making hip-hop romance appear genuine. Jim is now publicly accusing everyone of acting dishonestly, lying, and laying a prearranged trap that was camouflaged as for years. Chrissy positioned herself as the ultimate ride-or-die woman, supporting Jim through label disputes, street brawls, and the humiliating rejection of his proposal that is immortalized in VH1 replays. However, Jim claims that rather than keeping him down, she was containing him behind the scenes in what sources are describing as a leaking emotional breakdown that was communicated to his inner group. Jim admits that the love was restrictive, controlling, and never freeing. Now he's acknowledging that he was grounded in the worst possible way. We Fly High was created by the same individual. He said that conditional love, mental games, and emotional coercion were the foundations of their entire relationship. Jim accurately and under oath explained everything in a confidential deposition pertaining to a separate litigation concerning VH1. Jim was throwing so many emotional bombs that the court stenographer had to call a pause in the proceedings. Unexpectedly, Chrissy reportedly maintained an extensive relationship ledger, a spreadsheet that documented all of her expenses, including haircuts, grills, gym memberships, apparel, bail money, and even teeth whitening trays. It seems that she fought with the spreadsheet as a weapon. The official added that Chrissy once said, 82 on 311 by 47, "I'm not going anywhere." This isn't love. Chrissy's voice was described as tired but finally free when Jim asked for space. According to reports, she spent time on 3 different networks, but guess what? She did not include Jim Jones in the documentary series, which is titled "This is a Beauty Influencer Running a Hostage Negotiation with Excel and Lipstick." When an executive asked, "Is Jim attached to this project?" Chrissy allegedly replied, "No, but that's my version of events." And that's precisely when the contract collapsed. But the catastrophe doesn't end here. There is more to it than merely shade. And this is where the line separating open sabotage from public scandal starts to blur. The courtroom shook when Cameron arrived, seemingly called by Karma herself. There was a ton of evidence in a file folder marked Confidential C+J. And he was icily exact, without the PR smile or Hollywood strut. One courtroom staffer compared Cameron's appearance to the quiet before a legal storm as prosecutors launched the case, claiming that he wasn't there to provide support but rather to settle old scores and submit receipts. Everyone froze when they saw that Jim's or even Chrissy's name was not on the first page of a high-resolution bank scan. It read Christina Santiago, with the same birth date and address, and was previously connected to Chrissy's prior beauty business. However, strange transactions totaling $25,000, $50,000, and sometimes $80,000 were linked to the Cayman Islands account. These transactions were all characterized as consulting services for a television company that isn't even listed in any official records. On the fourth page, a jury asked for a break. But Cam was already warmed up and disclosed another startling detail: an invoice trail connected to the Chrissy Women's Empowerment Group. During her alleged comeback time, Cam's legal team revealed shocking information about more than $190,000 in donor funds that were allegedly embezzled to private companies associated with Chrissy's own brand. How did the funds for image consultants, promotional photos of the Glam Squad, and even a line item named Reunion Episode Wardrobe turn out? In fact, it was allegedly used for stunts on reality TV. By this point, Chrissy appeared to be short-circuiting. Her CO clenched and her fingers twitching, and her lawyer leaned in and murmured something, but she didn't mention it. "I told you that if Cam talks, we're done because he has proof and backups. I told Jim to turn it off, but he refused to listen, and the room fell silent." The prosecution's privacy. In the footage, Chrissy was shown pacing in stilettos in a Miami hotel hallway that was pixelated, as if she had just received bad news. The judge allowed the footage to be used as evidence because Chrissy, an image of dishonesty, manipulation, and possibly even fraud, was already eroding from the fierce ride-or-die woman. Then the final dagger appeared. C, a former production assistant for VH1. Her voice sounded apprehensive, but she was ready to burn it all down. Chrissy buried her face in her palms, but C wasn't finished yet. Editor telling him once that if he aired that footage, he'd never work again. The jurors flinched. She prepared fictitious invoices and claimed travel reimbursements for shootings that never occurred. On one vacation, which she called script development, I was celebrating her birthday in Turks and Caicos. Like someone who no longer needed to speak because the truth was suddenly being shouted over the courthouse speakers. Cam sat in the gallery through it all, showing no emotion or sneer. Meanwhile, bloggers were live streaming on Instagram outside the courthouse. Twitter was on fire, and the savage memes included a courtroom camera, another reality TV camera, and a picture of Chrissy sobbing with the caption, "When you bet the house on manipulation and it goes for closure." The most up to the courthouse's side entrance as the event came to a head. Jim had disappeared, leaving only a sweater and shadows. He slipped by photographers and into the courtroom like a ghost returning to the place. He sat behind Cam with his arms folded and his lips pressed firmly together. When the court asked, "Would you like to speak?" Jim calmly and quietly replied, "I just want the truth. I didn't know." Jim simply left again after Chrissy stood up and said something that could not be heard. And the video went viral, garnering tens of thousands of reposts and thousands of tabloid reports. After a few minutes, Jim abandons Chrissy in complete silence. After Jim's last glance, Cameron decided to start a full-scale wildfire rather than drop explosives. Just when you thought the chaos had peaked, another piece of evidence was given, and the court was still incomplete. This time, it was a time-stamped audio recording of Mama Jones herself, made only a year earlier. The subtle but significant message is that you think the woman loves you because she likes to be in charge. Wake up before you lose your enthusiasm and your money. It's direct, poetic, and cruel. The courtroom visibly froze as Chrissy collapsed into her chair. But the judge didn't simply nod in agreement. He signed an order because shortly after that memo, prosecutors dropped the hammer and joined forces with federal officials to conduct a more thorough investigation into Chrissy's financial background. Yes, subpoenas were being issued for years' worth of corporate records, nonprofit filings, and prior production budgets. These claims are accurate. Her former business manager, who was officially the subject of a federal investigation, might face RICO charges in addition to tax evasion and wire fraud. Without a final glance or a final remark, Cameron stood up, buttoned his blazer, and left the empire smoldering behind him. But that wasn't the end of the story, boss, because as everyone was glued to every leak, video and digital flame Yandy Smith took the stage and spoke out loud. An unstoppable wind strikes Chrissy's well-guarded house of cards as Yandi takes the stand. And new opponents emerge from ancient shadows because if you thought you were, the high point was Cameron's folder. Chrissy recoiled when she saw Yandandi. Smith's name and the courthouse doors had barely begun to settle down when they swung open once more. With the folder in one hand and her Bluetooth in the other, she bounded through the front, echoing baby hairs. As reporters shouted her name and photographers fumbled cameras flashing like warning shots. Yandandi looked into one camera and stated, "I had my say, and now it's my turn inside." Even though her face was very cold outside, the setting was already heated and Chrissy looked broke. She was shut in after being sworn in, and as she spoke, the room went quiet. "After I kept quiet for 10 years, out of respect, she lit the match, but now I speak to live." Yandane claims that Chrissy ran backstage during the 2013 and 2014 LHH seasons. What does that mean? Threats? Bribes? Pressure on producers and pressure on editors, allegedly aimed at altering the narrative. Backstage at a recording of a reunion, I experienced a panic attack. I informed production that I was being too dramatic for screen time, but she didn't disclose that she was the one who alerted my ex where I would be so he could corner me. After blinking once, Chrissy gazed at the floor as if the security footage would swallow her whole. Not even. Halfway through, Yandandi pulled out emails printed with the timestamp. "She'll survive. I won't, boss," was another of Yandi's responses. But this wasn't drama. Rather, it was black arts public relations warfare. The burner phone was eventually handed to Yandi's legal team after a real one from Chrissy to a showrunner. Remarked, "If I look bad, the whole show looks bad. Clean it up." Chrissy allegedly spoke with off-screen sources on an antiquated phone while she was on the show. The texts included paid feuds, phony strife, hush money for backup cast discussions, and one that said, "Pay her." Before the startling development, the courtroom shook. It was discovered that Yandandi and Cameron had been working together for months on more than just note-sharing, creating a digital forensic trail of all the questionable activities Chrissy was said to have engaged in from 2011. Twitter exploded once more with deliberate silence. Pure love and hashtags flying like confetti. There were no more side-by-side blog posts. One member commented, "She didn't clap back. She held the whole thunderstorm for 10 years, while Yandandi captured highlights from Reddit's Marvel Revelations. Just when Chrissy seemed to be at her breaking point, the prosecution made public the final audio recording. This was forensically verified to be a 2019 tape of her talking on the phone with a VH1 producer. If we mention anything about Jim's depression, people's focus will be distracted. Simply when everyone thought Jim had dipped for it? He appeared in court with his legal team by his side, without any chains, without any discussion, simply with exhausted eyes and legal documents. I look like a saint again because of Jim's mental health. He stood there looking at Chrissy and saying, "I just want the record straight. I didn't know." The judge even took a deep breath when the court asked if he wanted to speak. 4 words. Chrissy crumbled. She stood and mouthed something toward him. "Maybe, please?" Because he wants to ensure that nothing involving him is mentioned in court or during criminal investigations. He has taken every measure to keep her secure. Property deeds, asset records, bank account details, and a confidential letter detailing years of purported financial abuse and manipulation were among the many documents that Jim submitted. That clip went everywhere. TikTok stitched it. Reels exploded. Twitter. And it was the quietest mic drop in TV scandal history. This court finds reasonable cause to initiate a criminal investigation into allegations of fraud, coercion, and financial misconduct, the judge declared, bringing the gavel down quickly. Ms. Lampkin will no longer be able to manage any open company accounts and will not be allowed to travel with immediate effect. In retrospect, love. Chrissy did not respond, speak, or blink. She simply stared silently at the floor. They tried to erase the narration, the sinister music. The grainy black and white footage of Chrissy at invite-only parties, and the fact that some women write history while others appropriate someone else's. But I was able to preserve it all. I am not aware of a more ludicrous, disorderly, and contentious disaster in history. When it appeared that the story was complete, Mama Jones released a trailer. Yes, a real teaser for the opening line of a docuseries after businesses destroyed Chrissy and Jim's romance and locked down her image. That's all. It's the story of Chrissy. And Jim didn't just end. It blew out. And now the fallout is the property offers DS bloggers, subpoenas, and a merciless public. Contains blackmail, burner phones, fabricated tales, and converted wire transactions. The IRS is purportedly prowling around while Mona Scott is peddling Love and Lockup, the Lampkin Files, a love and hip-hop spinoff that is already well-liked in group chats. Do you know who is meant to tell the story? If you are still watching, you are already on the jury. While you can, click the subscribe button to be the first to know when the next episode airs. Was there ever love here? Or was Chrissy fabricating it all as she went along? One fake proposal and red carpet at a time? The real question is that, do you think Jim was duped and deceived? Or is this a bitter split posing as a Netflix drama? What about Yandi, the truth teller with receipts? Or the chess player with perfect timing? Turn on those alerts now, since you don't want to be the first to know about the next breach. Be prepared, be brutal, and we'll see you in the next expose. It is not just a controversy, it's a war. Involves receipts. Involves reality TV that has been turned into a confession in court. What follows?